Okay, and I think you're going to hear probably a lot of the things repeated up here because we're dealing with a very serious problem. Um, Being the commander over 5 school districts, I get to see a lot of these kids and the deputies that are dealing with them and the different crimes that are taking places. And you're right, there's really no real consequences to their actions. Um, you write them a citation or you fill out an affidavit and they go to court and they get a lenient um, slap on the hand there, and then they're right back out creating the same issue all over again. It's just a revolving cycle. Um, Violent crimes that are perpetrated, we're talking to that particular one. Some of the factors I noted is our population growth. Because of that, we have kids that are coming from other areas, other countries, other parts of the city or other states, and the growth here in the city of Houston, I, I can't tell you, man, it's outrageous. I mean, you look at our highways in the morning. So when you talk about that growth of population, the juvenile population also grows. And so these kids are trying to fit in. I mentioned to you earlier, I was from Louisiana. I remember being sent here kicking and screaming and being introduced into a Texas school. And I'm gonna tell you, even back then, that was a fight. I was a new kid, and so everyone wanted to challenge you. Everyone wanted to see what you were about, and these kids are experiencing some of the same things to fit in. So, that group, juvenile population growing, that's a major contributing factor. Social and economic, the instability in that, the change in demographics, the accessibility of, for violence is easier for them now. They can find a car or drugs or a gun anywhere. I mean, just this morning at 6:30 in the morning, I get a call from one of my school districts where they found a pistol laying in the parking lot of the school district. We think that it's probably the maintenance man that dropped it there, but again, here's a weapon just laying there that any child at an elementary, they could walk by, pick it up, put it in the backpack, and kept going with it. Thank God that didn't happen, so we were able to control that. So, when you talk about the accessibility of them and cars, they take your car while you're asleep at night. I'm sure some of these parents in here have experienced that, and they're out getting involved in things. For the increase, it's multifaceted. You talked about the economic situation, individual circumstances, societal influences, poverty, low income, lack of income. A number of those things play a role when you talk about these kids wanting the new pair of Jordans that came out. They see everybody walking around with it. Some parents are more able and fortunate enough to do that for their kids, but that child don't have that access financially, they're going to figure out a way to get that. Our parents are much younger than what they used to be. Our parents were. And so they're still trying to raise themselves in most cases. And you were correct about the young ladies. I mean, I think we deal more with young ladies and violence and fights than we do with the guys these days. And that says a lot to me. And I'm sorry, I've made my notes.
Okay,
So,
go right ahead.
the lack of opportunity, you're talking about limited access to education and or some type of employment. They're not able to get a job somewhere, maybe because transportation, they can't get to the job. Substance abuse, when they're involved in drugs, of course, their decision-making skills are now affected. So they're not making sound judgment, it impairs it, the decision-making is not there. And the biggest thing that I think I've seen in our school district is mental health. A lot of our kids are suffering from some type of mental health disorder.
Yes.
When you talk about the 504 or the SPED kids, and the school districts, they're like, okay, he has a special designation, we have to let him act out. they're allowed to tear up a classroom. We take the other kids out to keep them safe and let him or her do whatever they want. Those are just the things that we're faced. So when you do that and you're not providing some type of resource to these kids and they're acting out in that way, so that tells them that the rest of my adult life, it's okay to do this. Mm-hmm. So we should be in the school districts somehow getting some type of mental counseling for these kids, or guiding them in a way, or it all comes down to dollars. I get it. If I had 10 million, I'd donate it. Okay. Because mental health is real. Yeah. Family dynamic, you know, it's not stable. It's dysfunctional. Sometimes you have step parents, and that stepfather or stepmother really don't care about that kid like you do, because it's not their kid, it's yours. Mm-hmm. And so these kids see that. They don't feel that love when it comes to the family dynamic. You know, there are many of us that have been a part of that. I was a kid raised by a single mother. And of course, you know, it's easy for me to say, I was raised by a single mother, I did okay. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not always the case. My mother was a very strong-willed woman, and just as soon knock you on your butt than, you know, listen to any of that nonsense. So we don't have that dynamic much anymore. And some of the other factors, gun violence and the availability of guns, you'd be surprised how these kids are able to get access to weapons because their parents are, I'll tell you now, parents think that they don't know where that weapon is, and they think that they don't know the combination to that safe or where the key is. They do. When you leave, they go and search your room. They go through your things. They find that key, or they know where that combination is. So they have access to those weapons. And we talk about long-term and short-term, as far as the churches are concerned. I mean, I know that a lot of the churches are doing the best that they can. We're talking about church experiences with my church. I remember years ago, on a Friday night, we may have 1,000 kids there. And I remember thinking, wow, 1,000 kids on a Friday night at church celebrating God, enjoying each other. But it came down to the church and the pastor making that program available and making the church available for these kids to come and express themselves. They didn't judge them because of the way they were dressed or their hairstyle or whatever the case may be, or how they celebrated in the different tones of the music. Mm-hmm. We're used to a more traditional gospel. The kids want to listen to their gospel in a different manner. And that's okay as long as it's not offensive, and then they're getting the message. And so we have to, sometimes as adults, we've got to look back and say, okay, what are we doing? Or are we tying their feet down and making them not able or preventing them from expressing themselves? So, you know, food ops, food pantries, a lot of the church does that. I can't sit here and really come up with any great new ideas about short and long term, because most of the things I'm going to tell you we're already doing. Okay. But we, as far as the long term things are concerned, identifying and engaging in the community, identifying those leaders in the community, bringing them to the table, discussing what the needs of the community is, offering some type of training. You may have a facility or a room in your church where you can say, okay, we're going to do employment training, teaching people how to interview for a job. Mm-hmm. There are a number of things that I think that we can do when it comes to that. And just other than providing counseling, which most churches do anyway, for family dynamics.